Well, Gold Derby fans, she has made the world sing along to a little bit Alexis, and we're all the better for it. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and with me is Annie Murphy of Schitt's Creek. Thanks so much for sitting down with me. It's great to have you here. I know this is the final season of Schitt's Creek, but I wanted to sort of bring it back and talk about the creation of this character, because you just have such like what have become these iconic mannerisms with the floppy hands and the hair tosses and the vocal fry. Yeah, exactly. And so what was the inspiration? I just want you to walk us through, like, what was the inspiration for all that, and how did you come up with that character?
To be very, very honest, I buckled down. Who knew that what actors did was research. I decided to do research, and that meant me taking to YouTube for many hours on end and watching things like the Kardashians and Lindsay Lohan and Paris Hilton and all of those babes. And I kind of like Frankenstein little bits and pieces of them into Alexis, particularly like this way of speaking, which is so deeply lazy, and you really don't have to like exert any energy whatsoever, and I understand why people do it. And then the other thing was, I noticed it was late one night, and I noticed that every time they went shopping, they would sassily like strap a handbag over their wrists like this and then go promenade down Rodeo Drive or whatever. It sounds like yeah. But so I was like, okay, so this is how they carry it. What if there was no handbag and I flipped my wrist over and then added another wrist, and then I ended up with this monstrosity that has just like run rampant. So that's those are a couple of little things that I stole.
And what I really love as the season goes on is, you know, the four of you who are a family unit, like there really is a true family dynamic that's there. And it's almost like you can sort of see where like Alexis gets certain things from her parents, or Alexis and David have similar-ish mannerisms, but they're their own. Did you specifically work that way with them to create that kind of dynamic, or did that just kind of sort of evolve naturally?
I think it was a bit of both. I think after spending so much time together, the four of us as a family, we kind of started borrowing little bits and pieces. And I think particularly Dan and I don't want to go so far as to say Dan stole my thing, but I think that we gently stole, borrowed, whatever you want to call it, little aspects. I think I took a lot of his like facial expressions, and I think he took a lot of my limp-wristed flailing. So because siblings have similar tendencies and inflections and all that stuff. So I think a part of it was me being jealous of his like face range, and part of me being like, oh, as an actor, we should really make these characters a little bit more similar.
And when you did start in a role, going back to like season one and back when you got the part, there's co-stars there that have decades of experience working together. Obviously, Dan and Eugene are father and son, and with Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy, they've improv together and worked together for a very long time. Was it intimidating to come into a set like that where people already have a rapport?
Yes, I was scared shitless. I was so terrified. Because I was riding the high of getting the job. So it didn't really occur to me that I would actually have to be acting with comedy legends Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara until like the night before we started shooting. And I did not sleep 1 minute that night because I was racking my brains to come up with an excuse as to why I could not go into work the next day. And my poor brain could only come up with dentist appointment or doctor's appointment. And I figured that either of those things would not be powerful enough to constitute not showing up for my first day of work. So I dragged my trembling corpse into the studio. And I was lucky because even though Dan is the showrunner, he was, I think I had more experience acting than him at that point. So we were both very green and very nervous. And so it was nice to have that kind of solidarity with him going into it. But lucky for us, Eugene and Catherine are the kindest, most welcoming, respectful, joyful human beings. So so after that first take of the first scene, which I would love to watch because it's probably just a train wreck, it just kind of clicked, and everyone, we kind of took off as a family.
Yeah. And Eugene and Catherine, they have a huge improv background, so I'm always wondering, like, are they sticking to the script? Is that kind of the vibe on set, or is it everyone playing around all the time?
They, sorry, you cut out there for a little bit, but are you saying an improv vibe on set?
Yeah, like, are they sticking to the script, or are they kind of improving and playing around most of the time?
We always shot to script. And then, but of course, you know, with Catherine in particular, on such a creative level all the time. And so she would throw in a line. Like if a line came into our heads, we could throw it out there. Usually with me, it would not make the cut at all, but at least I tried. And then with Catherine would always take us by surprise, particularly with her pronunciation of words. Would really, really throw you for a loop. Like the time she made the word how into 3 syllables, it was how. And so she would just keep throwing that kind of thing at you, and it's very hard to keep a straight face.
And with this final season, you know, each of the family members and everyone on the show has had such a great sense of growth from where they started. And I think Alexis is in many ways is the most surprising, because so much of the comedy of your character comes from this sort of shallow list, selfish character. And so are you happy where she kind of ends up? Are you happy with where her journey played out?
So much. Because when we first meet Alexis, she's a deeply unlike. And I was really grateful. The way that the character was described in the breakdown for the audition was, you know, blonde, rich, socialite, selfish, all those things. But then at the bottom of the breakdown, it said a young Goldie Hawn. And that to me was super, super indicative, because yes, young Goldie Hawn was this bright, bubbly, ditzy person, but she was also this effervescent, charming, kind, sweet, likable light. And so it was really important for me to play Alexis with depth. Like every human has many, many layers and many sides to them. And I was really lucky that the writers were so good in turning this very unlikable character into someone who was very, very likable and selfish and selfless at the same time, and rude and sweet and a whole hodgepodge of different things. So I think where we saw Alexis at the beginning, which was super, super dependent on men and money, and then seeing her at the end, this truly, truly independent, okay, I'm saying independent woman. That's what she is. But yeah, I really love how much growth was given to this character, and I had so much fun playing the whole range of it all.
I think one of the biggest elements of growth for her in this final season is where things end with Ted. There's a very bittersweet ending where they have to let each other go, which I don't think she would have been able to do before. And that cafe scene where you have that moment of letting each other go is really, really beautiful. Can you walk us through what was it like playing that with Dustin?
It was a really special scene in a few ways, because first of all, I think when Dustin and I found out that Alexis and Ted would be breaking up, we were like, no, we've come so far. Like, what are we doing? But then after thinking about it, it really is, I think, the right place for both of those characters to end up. And it's such a beautiful example of the end of a relationship not being a failure, but being an incredible moment of love and respect and gratitude. And so it was a really tough scene to play because Dustin and I have become so close over the 6 years. And it was, I don't think it was his last day of shooting, but it was his second last day. So it was basically like one of the last scenes that we shot together. And it kind of was us saying goodbye as buds, and then Alexis and Ted saying goodbye. And it was really, we did the rehearsal and there was this kind of weird quiet on the set. And Dustin and I were like, oh God, like, are we really butchering this? And then Eugene came onto the set and he had tears running down his face and he just opened his arms to me and said, Danny. And so I had been fine up until that point, but then of course, Eugene Levy crying, you're screwed. Yeah. So yeah, it was a pretty emotional day for sure.
Well, a much more comedic place where Alexis grew was her crazy stories of abduction and travels and stuff, like finally have this practical payoff where she solves the escape room. She's like secretly the smartest one there. Yeah. And did you ever, like, you have so many of those stories, did you ever get to come up with any of those bits on your own? Did you ever like pitch random stuff to writers?
That was all the writers. That was their weird, tortured souls writing that stuff. I think what my small contributions were asking the writers to write in specific past boyfriends of mine, like Brian Luttrell from the Backstreet Boys, for example, was my husband growing up. And so to have Alexis have actually gone on some kind of romantic tryst with him was a highlight for me.
And I love, throughout the season, or the whole series, I've loved watching your chemistry with Dan and how that has evolved, the brother and sister thing. And especially in the final episode, in the marriage, you get to walk him down the aisle, but there's also comedic stuff because you're wearing a wedding dress.
It was a white silk gown, sir. Thank you so much.
What was it like on set that day? Because I assume that was where you really had to say goodbye. Was it difficult to get through that episode?
It was a very special episode too. We had so many like wonderful, sobby, heart-stabby moments on set this year. The wedding was the day before we broke for hiatus, so it was our last day in the studio ever. And the wedding itself was actually, it felt like we were actually at the wedding because we did the rehearsals and the Jazz Gals were singing. And I remember when the Jazz Gals were practicing, I got to sit in the pews and just listen to them on either side, just with their beautiful voices. And then Sarah Levy's big golden smile. And I think Dan was really, it was a really emotional day for everybody, but particularly Dan. So I think it felt strangely like we were actually at this wedding. Mm-hmm. So it was, and then the as you saw in the episode, the town hall was so beautifully decorated, and it was so sweet to see it in a different state. Yeah, it was a really, really nice, and yet another nice day.
And one of the things with Dan that has become so iconic since the show has premiered was your pronunciation of David. And there is a compilation video online, I think, of every single time you said it on the series. Did you realize, when did you realize that you, David, was going to become part of our collective vocabulary?
I'm still flabbergasted by this whole thing. It's nuts to me. And what makes it even crazier is that we were doing our live shows and someone in the audience piped up one night and informed us that Alexis only says "you, David" twice in the entire series. And so I don't, and then, there's a lot of like, ugh, David, or like, ew, David, or David, but the specific ew is very rare. And so I don't know what it was that like, people were just moths to a flame about it. But there are license plates now, like there are multiple license plates all over North America. There are like shirts and doormats and baby rompers, and it's blowing my mind, and I love it so much. I also love it because Dan is now getting people, he's like out on a jog or whatever, and people yell "ew" at him out the window, and I keep reminding him that he doesn't know for sure if they've actually seen the show or not, if they're just kind of reacting to what they're seeing. Fun for me.
The show really, I mean, it was, watched beforehand, but it really blew up in a big way when it landed on Netflix. And I think that's when all this stuff became part of our vocabulary, and people took notice, and the Emmy voters finally took notice, and you guys got into this comedy series. So what was it like from your end watching this like sudden surge of new viewers catch on?
Amazing. It was so incredible, because it felt like a little Canadian special TV show, and we shot here in Toronto, and so we were kind of isolated in that sense, and we were having so much fun with it ourselves, but it didn't really feel like the rest of the world knew about it. And so when it kind of exploded on Netflix, it was a real eye-opener and so exciting. And it was really wonderful for me, first of all, to have a job. Second of all, to have a job that I was really, really proud of. But then to realize kind of the scope of the show and how it was affecting people in a way that was much more than just pure entertainment was really incredible. And there were people writing in saying that the show gave them the courage to come out to their family, or got them through chemotherapy, or these really kind of significant life moments that the show has helped with. And so I feel really, really lucky to be a part of the wave of that.
Yeah. Well, it's a great series. It's sad to say goodbye to it, but we're glad it went out on a really high note. So everyone watching at home, make sure you subscribe to Gold Derby. Keep up to date with us throughout Emmy season. And Annie, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Sam. Nice chatting.